Hi guys, welcome back to ECG Insights. Today we've got the fifth episode in our ECG walkthrough series where we walk through a real ECG in a step-by-step process. So today we've got the ECG shown here, and this ECG was taken from an 83-year-old female who had a 4-day history of fever, reduced urine output, dark urine with confusion, and now the patient's off legs. So I'll give you a second to pause the video and go through these 6 points, and then we'll begin. So to begin with regularity, now although there's not a rhythm strip to go with this ECG, we can see that in most of the leads, the beats appear to be appearing in pairs. There's a narrow complex beat followed by a wide complex beat, and the gap from the narrow complex to the wide complex is less than the gap from the wide complex to the narrow complex. So this rhythm is likely to be regularly irregular. And the only exception to this is in AVR and AVL and AVF, where there are 3 narrow complex beats. I reckon if we had a rhythm strip and we could see this for an extended period of time, it's most likely going to show a regularly irregular pattern. So we'll now move on to rate. And again, because we don't have a rhythm strip, it's a bit trickier. However, we can see that if we count out the 30 large boxes, which we've got here, which will be 6 seconds, and count the number of QRS complexes in that 6-second rhythm strip, which appears to be 9. So there we go. And then we have to times this by 10 to get the number of QRS complexes that appear in 1 minute. And from that, we'll get a heart rate of about 90. So the next thing we're going to look at is the relationship between the P waves and the QRS complexes. Now we've actually got 2 different types of QRS complex on this ECG. We've got these narrow QRS complexes, which have a P wave before them. And then shortly after that, we've got these wide complex beats, which don't have a P wave before them. If you look at the PR interval between the P wave and the narrow complex beat, it's about 260 milliseconds. So that this patient has 1st degree heart block. And the combination of that narrow complex beat followed by the wide complex ventricular beat is called ventricular bigeminy. So this patient has these narrow complex sinus beats with a 1st degree heart block, and each of them is then followed by this wide complex ventricular beat. And the combination of those 2 in a repeating pattern is ventricular bigeminy. So there's the sinus beat with the P wave and the extended PR interval, and then there's the wide complex ventricular beat. And we know it's a ventricular beat because it's wide, but also because it doesn't have a P wave before it. And the other thing to note when we're looking at the relationship between the P waves and the QRS complex is actually the shape of the P wave on this ECG. So if you look at the P wave in lead 2 and AVF, you can see that it's double peaked, so it's got 2 separate peaks, and these 2 peaks are at least 40 milliseconds apart, so they're what we call bifid P waves. And also if you look at the P wave in V1, that negative terminal portion is at least 40 milliseconds in duration and more than 1 millimeter deep. The combination of those 2 factors, so the bifid P waves and the wide, deep terminal portion of the P wave in V1, suggests that this patient might have left atrial enlargement. So we'll now look at the QRS axis width and morphology. We've already covered some of this, but we'll go into a bit more detail. So we'll start with looking at the axis of the narrow complex beats. So we can see that lead 1, the QRS complex, is positive. In AVF it's negative, and in lead 2 it's also negative. So this patient has got left axis deviation. And the other thing to note is that the S wave in V2 plus the R wave in V6 is just about 35 millimeters. So this patient is just about meeting the criteria for left ventricular hypertrophy, which is maybe not a surprise considering the possible left atrial enlargement as well, because if you've got one of those, it's not unusual to get the other one. Maybe the patient's got aortic stenosis or long-standing hypertension, and they've got some structural changes to the left side of their heart. So we've got these narrow complexes, and then we've also obviously got these. So the QRS complex, these narrow complexes, is about 80 milliseconds or 2 small boxes. And then we've also got these wide complex beats that follow the narrow complex beats, and together that forms ventricular bigeminy. So we'll now have a look at the ST segment. So when we look at the narrow complexes, there's nothing exciting going on really. There's no significant elevation or depression. And then if we look at the wide complexes, there is appropriate discordance, which is not unusual for ventricular beats. So if you look in the anterior leads, for example, V1, V2, and V3, you've got a largely positive QRS complex followed by some ST depression, which is what we'd expect. Right, so now we'll look at the T waves and the QTC. So T waves, if we look at the T waves that are associated with the narrow complex beats, we can see that there's a negative T wave in AVR, and we can't really see much of a T wave in V1, but often you'll expect the T wave in V1 to be negative. Importantly, the T wave is positive in all other leads, which is what we'd expect. And then when we look at the T waves that are associated with the ventricular beats, we've got inverted T waves in lead 3 and V1, V2, V3, and V4 as well, or at least the initial portion of V4. This is appropriate discordance, which is what we'd expect for a ventricular beat. And then if we look at the QTC, so the ventricular beats are occurring on the T wave of the preceding narrow complex T wave. It's quite clear to see if you look in V4, V5, and V6, you can see that that ventricular beat is occurring really on the T wave for the preceding narrow complex beat, which is going to have quite a short QTC interval between these two beats. And then finally, what's our impression? So this patient's got ventricular bigeminy with left axis deviation, left atrial enlargement, and first degree heart block. Now this patient had a confirmed UTI on dipstick, so maybe there are some electrolyte changes or AKI that are causing these acute changes on the patient's ECG. So that concludes this episode of ECG Walkthrough. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please subscribe to keep the page going, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. So bye for now.